Hello and welcome to another edition of Workforce Water Cooler. I'm Leslie. Joining me, we have Brian and John. We all work for the South Central Workforce Development Board, and today we are talking about flexibility. And I thought it would be a nice opener if we did a flexibility test. All right? You're close. You're very close, John. Okay. I am what they used to call double jointed or hypermobile. So I want to see if you guys can do this. The first test is you take your hand and you can bend your pinky back 180 degrees.
Oh no.
Brian is very close. Like that's very close, Brian. Look at John. John, no, so you didn't pass that one. No. The next one is if you can take your thumb and touch your wrist. And that one is like super easy for me. Do you see? Like this. Like see my hand? You're bending your wrist down. So can
Brian's
y'all do that?
Brian is touching his thumb to his wrist.
Right. It has
I can also lick my wrist. You know. Can you lick your elbow? Are we getting to the lick your elbow one?
But so I'm extremely flexible. Brian, I was impressed with your pinky stretch. Can you do it on both hands?
No.
Yeah.
I think I just qualified for a VA disability trying to do that stretch.
So yes. So flexibility, of course, we're not, going to be talking about being double jointed necessarily, but flexibility in the workplace. I think it is an extremely important topic. It's extremely relevant. And the reason that I thought about this topic is because I was full-time for about 3 years with the board. My parents moved in with us. My father was in the end stages of battling lung cancer, and I had to go to part-time status just because I was his primary caregiver. And I recently, just July 1st, was able to return back to full-time. And I did a post on LinkedIn about it and just, expressing my appreciation to the board for allowing me to do that. I mean, there's no way I could have continued full time. My father unfortunately passed in December, and I'm still needed to help with my mom. So, I'm working remotely quite a bit, but we have settled into a place where I'm comfortable returning back to full time. And a lot of employers may not have given me that opportunity to step back it was about 6 months, wasn't it, John? Around 6 months. And then return to the full-time position.
7.
Yeah. So.
Felt like 18. That's what I heard him say.
Yes, it did. It did. But it really made a tremendous difference for me personally and professionally, having the opportunity to do that. And I think flexibility, just the big topic of flexibility, is extremely important in the workplace. So that is what sparked the idea for this topic. And I think it applies not only to switching to part-time, doing remote work. There are lots of other ways for employers to be flexible. And I found a really good article. It's from Business News Daily. It's June 29th, 2022. So, man, it was hot off the press. And the topic is, want top talent, give employees the flexibility they seek. And one of the quotes from this article that I thought was extremely good A great work-life balance builds trust and commitment within the workplace, which can increase productivity. So I'm throwing that out for discussion.
Yeah. I think, this is unrehearsed, right? So,
Right.
I would say that, flexibility, it's a broad term. It's very industry dependent on what that can
Yes.
be in any given industry. I know with our organization, I always look, we have the ability to be flexible. I'll be kind of, this is maybe a little bit crass, but we hire professionals, we hire adults, and you get a job, you're given a job, you know what you've got to do, whether you do it between the hours of 9 to 5 a.m. or 9 to 5 p.m. There's flexibility there. Everybody knows what needs to be done, and we just rely on them to get it done. And you don't have there. I think we try to be inherently flexible.
Mm.
So whatever needs to be done, get it done. And that's what professionals do, right? And so, anyway,
Well, and I think that goes to the mindset of being goal oriented rather than time oriented.
yes.
And a lot of workplaces are still in that time oriented mindset rather than goals.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what you described, John. Here are your goals, here's what needs to be done. There you go.
There you go. Get it done.
That's right. That's
Get
right.
It done.
Take care of business.
It's interesting too, Leslie. I think in your case, maybe 5 years ago, it would have seemed a little out of place for you to maybe have even maintained part-time status completely away from the office. But with the new tools, this streaming capability, the live connection, it doesn't feel as awkward or as weird or like John was playing favoritism, right? And of course, since we're talking about a local thing, we'll use the people's names, like John being the supervisor. It could have been like, oh, John likes, he's being favorites with Leslie. He lets her work from home. And that's kind of probably the attack that would have been there 5 years ago.
Yeah. No,
or he lets her come in late or, whatever. And people do that, right? That's like every workplace has those people where we think that happens, and it may legit happen, or it's just perceived, or there's information not everybody needs to know about that person's situation. You were more forthcoming with your situation, Leslie, publicly and privately, but some people choose to keep those matters private, and it's not going to come out, the reason why somebody needs flexibility. But the tools were in place, and so that was important. But I think we're even flexible as far as the hiring requirements, with some of the positions that we've had. It feels a little scary to advertise a job saying, bachelor's degree preferred, but not necessarily required. But, we did not want to limit who we thought our candidate pool would be for the last, handful of positions that we've had. I don't know. I've just been involved in a handful of them, but, just looking at who could come in that may not have exactly the degree, because you always have people that it's hard to reconcile the degree with what the position is. It's like, wow, you've got a baking degree, you've got a culinary degree, but you've been in the banking industry for 20 years, that just happens, right? And you can be professional and excel in that way. And I think I've been an example too, that my degree doesn't match, the jobs that I've had, but thankfully there's been flexibility with the employers that I've applied to. And I think our board is one of those as well.
Absolutely. All right. Here, let's see. Here's another quote to throw out. It is important for employers to understand that workplace flexibility is more than giving employees schedules that best suit their needs or allowing them to work from home on certain days. So flexibility is much more than remote work. We've talked about time quite a bit. And Brian brought up, I'm glad you mentioned the point about degree requirements. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we are really trying to get out there is to have employers hire new Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And they are a perfect example of, they may have a degree from another country that does not translate into a bachelor's degree from a college in the United States. But by giving that flexibility, and like you said, it's sort of scary. People might look at the job posting and say, what, bachelor's degree preferred? It's because, we're trying to look at what other things has this person accomplished. And I think that's important for employers to really start looking at. It, and this is just my opinion, but I think it's going to be harder and harder to be competitive as far as hiring if you don't start becoming, more flexible, more open to different practices. John, how else can you see flexibility in the workplace?
Mm.
What other examples?
Well, before I give an example, I would say, as you were talking, Leslie, I was thinking about like one of the greatest lessons I learned in my time in the military. This is a few years back. We were out in the desert in California going through a very rigorous and intense training exercise. And at the time, I worked for a boss who's a wonderful friend, but this guy wanted everything planned out to the exact letter, to the nth detail. And that was just how he was wired. And we would take relatively routine things and make them extremely complicated. And we got pulled, and we were being evaluated. And at one point, the evaluator pulled me aside with another guy, and he's like, "Gentlemen, it's only as hard as you make it. It's only as hard as you make it." And there was so much truth to that. I mean, we laughed about that because for the rest of the exercise and to this day, like 15 years later, when we talk, it's like, "Hey, buddy, it's only as hard as you make it." Sometimes I feel like that's how we are in HR. Now, there's a lot of complicating factors and regulations and policies that are laid upon us by the Department of Labor, but some of it is of our own making. Some of the bureaucracy of our internal employee handbook and our internal rules is of our own design and making. And that's where I think, employers can, set aside some time to relook, like, what do I have to do? What does the government say I have to do? And then look for flexibility. And the things and once you kind of figure out what you have to do, then look for, like, do away with things that create inflexibility.
Yeah.
Or better said, create flexibility within your, because oftentimes that's what it comes down to. It's just over time, bureaucracy sets in and you've made it harder on yourself. And in today's environment, you've got to be flexible. You've got to be competitive. So examples, I mean, I'll just kind of going back to the military one. We tell employers all the time, if you want to compete for transitioning service members or spouses, you have to you have to be flexible. You have to understand they moved over and over again, that their work history is going to be checkered because of the number of times that they moved. They may not have a degree, but they have tremendous management and leadership experience. They've got soft skills. So you have to be flexible in how you look at their resume, and you have to read between the lines oftentimes because there's a lot of diamonds in the rough out there. A lot of diamonds in the rough.
Absolutely. And we, the board created a position at Fort Campbell, the Kentucky Career Navigator, to help soldiers with this exact situation. How can we take your resume and make it more reflective of what you've been doing during your time in the military? And, how can we help employers understand that even though you don't have a degree, just like you said, John, you have years of experience. I mean, so we have an entire position. We've got Michael Daly down at Fort Campbell helping soldiers do this exact thing because there's a need for it.
Yeah. John and I had an opportunity to speak in front of some employers last week, and I, when I was addressing them, I had a thought kind of enter my head, and I said it in the same moment, just about that it came in my head. But I said, I know that there has been more openness and willingness of employers to hire people that don't necessarily fit the normal criteria that they've had. Speaking specifically about people that might have criminal conviction histories, or things that'll show up on a background check, potentially, more limited education or gaps in employment. I didn't list all the examples, but I said, I've heard the word often used desperation. I think we hear that there's just a sense that these things don't matter as much anymore. And I said, I don't want to think it's that as much as I think that maybe if it is desperation that's forced these things, that employers are finding out they're not as spooky to deal with as they may have thought that they were. And I got a lot of head nods from the crowd when I said that, of HR people. So I think that's been a thing too, is that it seems a little spooky, a little scary. But if you jump into those waters, like John said, diamonds in the rough, I think it may take a little extra effort and some structure that companies might not be used to. But everybody's got their own training program anyway. So, if they've been through a third party certificate or diploma credentialing place, I mean, you still got to teach them how to do it on the job, how to interact and communicate and all of that. So sure, those skills off the bat are great, but there's still a lot of internal training that's already going to happen anyway. So why not let those past factors, spook away the ability to bring in somebody great to the company. So.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, very, very good discussion on flexibility. I appreciate your time. I think.
Thank you, Leslie.
John, try it one more time. Try it one more time, John. Let me see.
Yeah.
Oh, well, don't break your pinky. That would be a bad way to end the show.
Now, you said, can you rotate it 180 degrees? So that's all you got to do, John. or 90 degrees. Yeah. And then, look, I can even do mine 180.
Wow. You're super flexible, Brian. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us, and be sure to catch us next time on Workforce Watercooler.
Woohoo!